Hey, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, hello, my name's Alex. So as someone who is still in design school, I question all the time, what is my style? If you're just a creative in any sense, I feel like you've probably gone through something like that too, where you've questioned like your whole identity. It's really like scary and kind of daunting task to try to figure out and define who you are. So I thought I'd make this video to talk about how to find your style if you are a designer or even just a creative in any field. I think the question of like trying to figure out your style, or even the question of should you have a style, is something really important to consider in this field. Before I get started, I do want to address the question of should you even have a style? In the world of graphic design, that is a question that we have to think about a lot. So right now I'm going to give you the case against having a style. Some have argued that you shouldn't have a style as a designer. That's because in the world of design, we're not creating for the sake of creating art. It is largely a service that you are providing for someone. You are creating stuff most of the time for a client, and the client's brand and their mission and who they are is a lot of times going to determine the look of the products that you are designing for them, or their branding, or whatever you're doing for them, as opposed to you just designing with your own personal taste in mind and then giving them something that is more representative of you than it is of them. And the other argument for that is also that once you start developing your own style, it's hard for you to break out of that. And then you get sort of like put into a box where it's really hard for you to sort of break out of that if you want to try something new. Those are two different reasons against developing your own personal style. But in this video, I'm kind of arguing more for having a style. And the reason I think that is because as young designers and creatives, I think it's really important to try to develop your own brand and to communicate who you are in your work. And I think building like a very distinctive brand is like so important nowadays. It's so important for everyone to brand themselves. And you can't brand yourself if you don't know what your style is. So with all that being said, here are my tips and tricks on how to find your own style. So my first tip, and this is gonna sound kind of basic, just ask yourself, what do you already like? You have a clothing style, I'm sure. You have a home decor style. I'm sure there are brands that you really love. So just start asking yourself, what about them do you like? Analyze everything. Analyze the typography, the color palette. Are they more minimalist? Are they a little more fun and playful? Everything around you that you are surrounded by is designed. Someone put thought and intention into everything that you have that surrounds you, or at least hopefully they did. So keep that in mind and try to incorporate aspects of the things that you already love into your own creative style. My second tip is to look at the work of famous designers and artists. I know that no one wants to be told to like go and read a history book. You don't necessarily have to go rent a book from the library, but it's so easy to just Google famous designers, famous artists, and analyze their work. Design evolves and it's built upon stuff that came before it. Those famous designers that you see, everything that has come since then has been built off of their work and their innovations. So look to them. And once you've studied and analyzed the work of famous designers, you can kind of get an idea of what you like and don't like. My third tip is to look to Pinterest and Behance. One thing that I like to do is create boards and just sort of pin things that interest me. I don't really put a whole lot of thought into it. I just sort of pin it if I like it. I have boards dedicated to typography, branding, and once you do that, you can look at your boards and notice patterns in the things that you're pinning. This was a really helpful exercise for me because I always thought that I was super into like very clean, geometric sans serif typefaces, and then looking back at my boards, I'm actually really into like humanist serifs right now. And if you're looking for somewhat more professional inspiration, I would go to Behance. Behance is essentially a place for designers and other creatives to showcase their work. It's kind of like a portfolio website. I like it a lot because you can break it down by the kind of project and the creative field. My fourth tip is to mind map yourself. So this is a great way to get an idea of how your personality and your hobbies can influence your design. We actually did this as an exercise in one of our classes when we were doing a branding project, and I think it's really helpful. It sort of gives you an overview of who you are as a person, and then you can use the things about yourself to influence your style as opposed to just trying to figure it out from scratch. It doesn't take long either. It's super easy to do. You should definitely list out like aspects of your personality, your hobbies, things like that. You should also ask your friends too, because that sort of gives you a better, like more objective view of who you are. But I definitely think your style should be dependent upon who you think you are. It's also important too, when you are branding yourself, that your personality is genuinely showing through in your work, because it would be really shitty for an employer to receive all your like personal branding and your self-promotion and them to realize it doesn't align with who you actually are as a person. And lastly, my fifth and final tip is to just practice. So much of design is learned through trial and error. Just start making something and look at your own work and see what about it that you actually like. It's definitely true that over time your style will change. Like I was saying in the previous tip, your style should be a reflection of your personality, and so much of your personality changes over time. You change and you grow as a person, so it makes sense that your style as a designer would also change as well. Part of it is just becoming a better designer and learning more about the industry and just sort of perfecting stuff as you go along. There are things that you learn over time that just happen as a result of experience. I know it's not the easiest tip because it requires a lot of time and effort, but this is definitely the most practical. As sort of like a new designer myself, I am still trying to figure out my own style. There is like definitely a spectrum from like super uber minimalist, Swiss grid, you know, like very white and clean and neat. And then there is very like asymmetrical and colorful and playful. And I think that as a designer, I'm somewhere in between that. I like my work to err more on the side of minimalism, but I do love a lot of color, and I do try to be a little more playful with my design than I have been in the past. So anyways, I hope that was helpful for you guys. If you like this video, then please make sure to like it. That helps me out so much. And if you want to see more design content from me, then you should go ahead and subscribe, because I make mostly design videos. I will see you next week with another design video. Bye!